Students, for this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to see what are the different other models of Turing machines. Sometimes we call them as variations of Turing machine. In the previous chapters, we have already discussed what is a Turing machine, and we have seen a couple of examples how to solve a problem using Turing machine. Okay. Now, one thing which I would like to mention now is the original standard single tape Turing machine M that we had already seen earlier. Okay. Now I would like to tell you that as we know that this particular Turing machine had 7 tuples. Okay. Q, that is finite set of states, sigma is input alphabet, tau is the tape alphabet, del is the transition function, q naught is the initial state, this is a blank symbol, and f is a set of final state. However, one thing which I did not tell you that time, I am going to reveal it now. The transition function del of the original single tape Turing machine is actually, okay, this q cross tau gives q cross tau cross L comma R. Notice that what is something different is over here. Okay, the tape read write head pointer, it moves either to the left or to the right. Okay, so the original single tape Turing machine, it does not have a stationary pointer movement S. It does not have. It was however included much later as a variation, although we have already included it in our definition of Turing machine. So remember that when I introduced you the concept of Turing machine, I told you that the transition function is of the type q cross tau gives q cross tau cross L R comma S also was mentioned to you. Okay. I did not tell you at that time that the Turing machine that we are actually using is a variation of the Turing machine. It's just a small modification of the Turing machine. So the original Turing machine, if you talk about the original single tape Turing machine, actually does not have a stationary movement. The pointer can only move to the left, the pointer can only move to the right. Okay. Now for our convenience, we also introduce stationary movement. But now we will see what exactly is that kind of Turing machine wherein stationary movement is also involved. Okay. So these are just minor variations of Turing machine. Whenever for exam they ask you to design a Turing machine, you can definitely use even the stationary movement like how I have been using it. Okay. Now we are simply categorizing the Turing machine with minor varieties. Now the first Turing machine is the machine with stay on option. Stay on means stationary movement option. Okay. So as discussed above, in our standard Turing machine, the read write head must move either to the left only or to the right only. There is no stationary movement in our standard Turing machine, the original standard Turing machine. There is no stationary movement. When I taught you, I also introduced a stationary movement so that it helps us in solving problems. But actually that kind of Turing machine is called as Turing machine with stay on option. So you see here, in this variation we allow 3 movements of read write head, leftwards, rightwards, and the third option is called as stay on. That means stationary movement. So this is what I had introduced to you long back, where movement was left, right as well as stationary. Okay, this is a minor variation of Turing machine. It will not hamper or it will not affect problem solving. While solving the problems, Turing machine problems, you can definitely use the stationary movements also, no problem. Okay. Now also there is a minor variant of a normal Turing machine. Okay, there is called as multi-track Turing variant. Okay. Now this is not a separate category of Turing machine. The textbook Peter Lind does not categorize multi-track Turing machine as a separate category. It said that it's just a variant of the normal Turing machine. Now what is multi-track variant? Now you see in this figure, this is the tape of the Turing machine. Okay, and each tape is actually now divided into 3 parts. Okay, each cell of the multi-track Turing machine is divided into 3 parts. Okay, and which are called as tracks. So now if you see the figure, okay, this is one cell. Okay, now this cell is divided into 3 parts. This is part 1, this is part 2, this is part 3. So which are called as tracks, track 1, track 2 and track 3. Now why this is called as a variant of a normal Turing machine? Because we have already seen that the input string is fed onto the Turing machine. Now in the normal single tape Turing machine, the normal one which we have already seen, at a time the read write head used to read only one cell, correct? And in that one cell you would hardly have a single symbol. So it is similar to what in your C programming, okay, there is a function which reads get char function which reads one character at a time. Okay, so you can consider the single tape Turing machine reading one character or one symbol at a time. But many a times you would like to read one full string at a time, okay, or set of characters at a time. Okay, so that time we can use this variant called as multi-track Turing machine. So what will happen here? Now for example, in this cell over here, the read write head is pointing to this cell. Now in track 1 you can have one symbol, in track 2 you can have the second symbol, in track 3 you can have the third symbol. Now when the read write head reads, okay, a particular cell, at a stretch it reads all three symbols. Okay, so A, B, C is together read by the read write pointer at once. So this is the difference. Fine. Other than that, this multi-track variant is exactly same as your single tape Turing machine with respect to the functionality and with respect to the movement of the head pointers and everything. The only difference is in single tape Turing machine, the original single tape Turing machine, at a time only one symbol in a cell is read. Here, since the cell is divided into multiple tracks, all the symbols which are inserted in different tracks, whenever a head is pointing to that cell, it can simultaneously read all the content from each and every track simultaneously. That's a difference. Okay, but Peter Linz has not categorized this multi-track Turing machine as another variant. It is just a small variant of a normal Turing machine only. So he is just displaying it here. Okay. So now second minor variant of the Turing machine is Turing machine with semi-infinite tape. Now semi-infinite tape is what? Now we have already seen, please consider this figure here. Okay, I will draw a figure here. Your normal Turing machine, if you can remember, it had a tape. Okay, and I said the tape is infinite from both the ends, right? I said that tape is infinite from both the ends. But now look at this figure. Okay, now the tape has a boundary over here. It is bound over here, whereas on the other side, it is infinite, right? So in this variant, the tape is unbounded only in one direction. So tape is unbounded in only this direction, whereas it is bounded in this direction. This Turing machine is otherwise, it is identical to a normal standard Turing machine. There is no change, except one small thing, that no left move is permitted when the read write head is at the boundary, which means that suppose your read write head is pointing on this particular cell. Okay, suppose your read write head is pointing on this particular cell, then the head cannot go one place to the left. Okay, then the head will not be able to go one cell to the left. Why? Because there is no cell only here, right? Whereas the head will be able to move to the right. Now when it is in the second cell here, now it can very well go one place to the right, one place to the left. But whenever the read write head is there present on the first cell over here, okay, it will not be able to go still further left. There is a boundary here. That's the only difference. Otherwise, the working of this Turing machine is exactly same as your normal single tape Turing machine. So this is called as Turing machine with semi-infinite tape. Now, multi-track variant of this particular thing, you see, you have again here there is a boundary, and other side it is unbounded. And now the cell is divided into tracks. So you have two tracks. See, track 1 for right part of the standard tape. So this is track 1, and track 2 for the left part of the standard tape. Okay, so we have two tracks. The first track is for the right part of the standard tape, and second track is for the left part of the standard tape, right? Now third kind of variant of Turing machine, it is called as offline Turing machine. Now this is an interesting concept. Let us go back to the previous automatas that we have studied. Okay, we have seen an automata, okay, which was also having auxiliary memory, which is called as PDA. Okay, So what happens in PDA? PDA has an auxiliary memory called as stack, and also apart from this there is also an input file which is present. Okay, what I meant to say is, whenever we talk about PDA, PDA has a stack, right? And also there is a separate input file where you have your input string. Agreed? So the automatas which have auxiliary memory, for example PDA that we have studied, it had a separate memory, it had a separate auxiliary memory, and the input string was inserted separately into a separate input file. So every time input symbol was scanned by the input pointer and it was inserted, or operation was performed on the stack. Now in Turing Machine, however, when I started teaching you Turing Machine, I said that this idea of keeping the input string separately is not required in Turing Machine, because it becomes very handy in Turing Machine. So instead of what we do in Turing Machine, instead of keeping a separate input file, we say initially the input itself is inserted into the Turing Machine. This is what we have seen in a normal Turing Machine. Now offline Turing Machine is a variant wherein, okay, we put the input string back into the picture. So now you imagine, okay, now you imagine that this is the tape of the Turing Machine, okay, and this is, the read write head. Now if we keep the input not on the tape, but if you keep the input separately, like what you used to do in the PDA, input file is kept separately. If you keep the input read only input file separately, okay, then how it will function? So see, there will be a control unit that is required. This control unit, its aim will be what? It will be reading one element of the input string at a time. It is only read. It cannot modify this input file because it is read only. So control unit will do what? At every iteration it is going to read one symbol at a time. Okay, right now it is reading say C, and then the read write head over here, which is connected to control unit, will perform the required operations on that input C. Okay, fine. So this read write head which is there, it will take this C, which is input, which is read from this input file. Okay, read write head, read write pointer or read write head that is here is going to read that C, and according to your algorithm it may then read something on a cell, it may then write something on a cell, or it may stay stationary and do the normal Turing machine operations. Okay, so when you talk about the operation of the Turing machine, the operation will be exactly same as your normal single tape Turing machine. The difference will be only that instead of keeping the input on the tape, input will be kept separately in the input file. Input elements will be read, each symbol in the input string will be read one at a time, and then whatever is read based on that, tape contents will be modified according to the algorithm. Something will be copied, something will be deleted, something will be modified, something will be and so on, a different operation. So that is a minor variation of Turing machine called as offline Turing machine. So in short, okay, in Turing machines we discarded the input file earlier because we came to know that this made no much difference to the Turing machine concept. However, in offline Turing machine we put the input string back into picture, okay, and this is the offline Turing machine. Now when you go to the multi-track variation of it, exactly the same thing will happen. There will be a input string. So this will be your input string. Input string will be read by the control unit, and then control unit will feed it to the system, the Turing machine system, and your read write head, after reading that input, it is going to perform the operations on the tape of the Turing machine. Now please notice that here there are 1, 2, 3 and 4 tracks. You can have n number of tracks in a Turing machine, but whenever the pointer is pointing to a particular cell, all these elements can be read or written simultaneously or deleted also simultaneously, right? So these are the very minor variations of Turing machine. First one is Turing machine with the stay option. We did not realize this also because we were using it first only. Okay. Second is your multi-track variant of this. Okay. As I have already told you, Peter Lynch has not categorized multi-track Turing machine as a separate Turing machine. Whereas if you see the other textbooks like your John Martins and all, they have kept a separate they have categorized separately something called as multi-track Turing machine. Okay. Now, then semi-infinite tape Turing machine is the one wherein at the one side there is a boundary, on the other side there is no boundary. This is the multi-track variant of the Turing machine. And now, just now we have seen something called as offline Turing machine, wherein input string, which was earlier fed directly onto the tape, is kept separately. Okay. So, and this is the multi-track variation of the Turing machine. So, these are minor variations of the Turing machine. Now, Turing machines can also have more complex storage. Now, one thing you should be very clear about. Usually, we have a small notion in our mind that if the storage is more complex, the operation performed or the power of that particular thing will be more. Whereas in Turing machines, okay, the power of the Turing machine remains same as a normal single tip Turing machine with a normal storage. Okay, so there are proofs which you don't have. Okay, the proofs have shown that by increasing or by making the storage more complex, the power of the Turing machine, of the single tip Turing machine, it cannot be increased. Okay, it is equivalent. So that means multi-tape Turing machine is one of the variant. Your multi-tape Turing machine, its power is almost same as your single tape Turing machine. Okay. Now the first Turing machine in this category, where Turing machine with multiple storage is concerned or more complex storage is concerned, the first Turing machine is called as multi-tape Turing machine. Now what happens here? In single tape Turing machine, as the name suggests, there was only one tape. In multi-tape Turing machine, you have multiple tapes. So this is one tape, this is second tape, this is third tape. Okay, and each tape will have a separate head. For example, this is a dedicated read-write head for tape 1, this is a dedicated read-write head for the tape 2, and this is dedicated read-write head for tape 3. Now, since in a particular problem, the data or the symbols will be fed on each of these tapes, and there has to be a synchronization between these heads, because algorithm will function based on the mutual computations that happen between different tapes. So there has to be a tape head controller that requires. Okay, again this is not an electronic concept, actually this is the theoretical. We assume that there is a central tape head controller which controls the coordination of all the heads, right? So multi-tape Turing machine have more than one tape and a tape head for each of the tape. Each Turing machine will have a tape head controller which controls all the tape heads of the Turing machine. Now when the power of multi-track and multi-tape Turing machine is analyzed, they are same as that of the simple Turing machine. This point I was just telling you, right? So don't think that if you make the storage complex, the power of the Turing machine will be increased. No. Okay, they have proved that whatever simple Turing machine that Alan Turing had proposed, the power of that machine, no matter how complex storage you make or no matter how different variant to consider, okay, the power of that simple Turing machine is almost same as that of your multi-track or multi-tape Turing machine. Okay, this is analyzed from different algorithms, proofs which we don't have. Right now, the second category, second Turing machine in this category of more complex storage is called as multi-dimensional Turing machines. Okay, this is a slightly complex concept. Okay, so we will only see the theory of this. Now here the tape can be viewed as extending infinitely in more than one direction. Now whenever I say direction, I am talking about the axis, x-axis, y-axis, z-axis. So you can have 1D Turing machine is simple. That's a single dimensional Turing machine, same as single tape Turing machine, normal. You have 2-dimensional Turing machine, 3 dimensions, so on. Now other dimension, it will be very complex to even think about such Turing machines. So let's go for 2D Turing machine, 2-dimensional Turing machine. So this is the address scheme of 2-dimensional Turing machine. Okay. Now as you can see here, this is a point. Okay. Now you see there are coordinates now, 1, -1, 1, 1, 1, 2, -1, 1. So each cell is referred with the x component and the y component. Okay. Let us not go into the detail what are these components, but just understand that each of the cell, like how we have matrices, Each cell of the matrix has x and y component. Similarly, each cell over here is referred with x and y. Okay. Now, since it is multi-dimensional, there is a left moment of the head, there is a rightwards moment of the head. Please note, if the cell is over here, if the content is over here, okay, then the head will, at any point of time, head can move leftwards, head can move rightwards, or head can move up as well as head can move down. Now, this up and down movement was not there for other Turing machines which we have seen so far, because they were single directional, or that means they were single dimensional Turing machine. There was only one direction. Now there are 2D, so there are two directions. So the formal definition of 2D Turing machine involves a transition function del of the form del gives q cross tau gives q cross tau cross now the head moment left, right, and there is no stationary moment, rather there are two more moments u and d, where u and d specify the moment of the read-write head up and down respectively. Now we don't have implementation of this Turing machine also. Okay. Now there is a separate category of Turing machine. Now so far whatever Turing machines that we have seen, okay, they are all deterministic Turing machines. You consider any automata. Automata was always either deterministic or non-deterministic. We have now seen so many examples of Turing machine, they were all deterministic. So now let us go to a category called as non-deterministic Turing machine. Okay, a non-deterministic Turing machine is exactly similar to non-deterministic finite automata, and it has more than one move on each tape symbol, exactly same. Now this is a Turing machine that we have designed. What it does, a Turing machine to accept numbers that are multiples of 2 or 3. Okay. Now as you know, the numbers are denoted or represented on the tape, okay, using unary format, correct? So if I want to say multiple of 2, 2 ones are 2, 2 twos are 4, 2 threes are 6, and so on. So you will see 2, let's say 2 is represented on the tape with 2 ones. Okay. So the Turing machine being able to accept multiples of 2, it should be able to accept 2, 4, 6 and so on. So let's start initially from Q0. Initially we are in Q0 state. Okay, and now I am assuming that the read-write head is already pointing in the beginning of the on the first character of the input string. So that one extra transition which I usually write is not there here. You can even include that. Okay. Now when 1 is encountered, 1 is replaced with 1, pointer moves to the right. So when 1 is encountered, you replace 1 with itself, pointer moves to the right. Okay, pointer moves to the right. So from Q0 it goes to Q1 state. In Q1 state again, see, when 1 is encountered, 1 will be replaced with itself, pointer moves to the right, you go to Q2 state, which is a final state. So in Q1 state again, when 1 is encountered, 1 is replaced with 1, pointer moves to the right, and you go to Q2 state. That means 2 number of 2 ones, it represents 2, which is a minimum possible multiple of 2. 2 ones are 2. Okay, so 1 1 will be accepted. Now 4 should be accepted. So 1 1, so 2, 3 and 4. 4 number of 1s means 4. Number 4 will be accepted. 6 number of 1s means number 6. Let's see whether it is accepted. 1 2 3 4 5 6 accepted. Okay. Now this particular automata is called as non-deterministic because from a particular state, on reading the same input, it is going to more than one steps. Right? From a particular state, on reading the same inputs, it is going to more than one different state. That's why it is non-deterministic. Okay, so this part over here, it accepts numbers that are multiples of 2, whereas this part over here, it accepts multiples of 3. Okay, what are multiples of 3? 3 ones are 3, 3 twos are 6, and so on. Okay, so minimum possible string that should be accepted is 1, 2, 3. Then 4, 5, 6 accepted. 7, 8, 9, which is multiple of 3. 10, 11, 12 accepted, which is multiple of 3, and so on. So either this branch or this branch. So this is an example of non-deterministic Turing machine. Before we conclude this lecture, okay, let us come to a very important part and very important concept that is called a Church-Turing thesis. Okay, two experts, Church and Alan Turing, together they came up with a thesis called a Church-Turing thesis. Okay, what is the statement of that thesis? They said, the Church-Turing thesis said that a Turing machine is a general model of computation for all the algorithmic procedures that can be carried out by a human or by a computer. A very powerful statement that was made by Church-Turing thesis. They said Turing machine is basically what? It's a general model of computation. This particular machine can handle, okay, all the procedures, all the algorithmic procedures that can be carried out by either human or by a computer. Okay, so if I put this in a other way, we can say they proposed that the Turing machine that they have come up with, okay, it is able to solve any problem, okay, which can be solved either by a human being or by a computer. Fine. So this was the statement. Okay. So it states that it is possible to design a Turing machine for any algorithm. Okay. Once an algorithm is designed to solve a problem, the equivalent Turing machine can be designed to implement it. The implementation of algorithm is a way of organizing the data storage, okay, areas and keeping track of progress of algorithm. Now there are some questions. What if Turing machine is not able to solve a problem? Okay. So if Turing machine is not able to solve a problem, according to the Church-Turing thesis, it says that such problem is beyond the measures of computation. It is not solvable either by human being or by computers. Okay, these are unsolvable problems. So this is the Church-Turing thesis. For exam, they might ask you to write a short note on Church-Turing thesis. Okay, you can just read this particular topic from the textbook Peter Linz, where he has also explained it. Okay, and also the other variations of Turing machine, other models of Turing machine, these are also called as variations or variants of Turing machine. This is also a theory question sometimes which is asked. Explain different variations of Turing machine, or they may also ask individual question. For example, what is stay on Turing machine with stay on option, explain, or what is a Turing machine with semi-infinite tape, explain, or what is offline Turing machine, explain. What is multi-tape Turing machine, explain. What is multi-track Turing machine, explain, and so on. Right? So that is it for this lecture. So what I suggest is, this is basically the overview of different other models of Turing machine which are there, and at the end we have also discussed something called as Church-Turing thesis. So do go through this and also go through the textbook. Thank you.